Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life Living in the Ark. I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day out here if it wasn't for the rain. But, you know, the rain actually keeps people out, so it's not so bad walking in the rain. Gives me quiet time on the trails. Though I did get to talk to a couple people. Friend, you know, I just come on here to talk about whatever it is that comes to my mind when it comes to this Jesus and to the Holy Spirit. Now, I say my Father, but you know I'm talking about your Father, because Jesus said, call no man Father but your Father in heaven. So that's who my Father is, and that's what I call him. I've gotten to the point where I love being out here. This morning I was talking to somebody about my relationship with God, and they were telling me about their spouse and how that person was their other half. Tell you the truth, friend, it was my mother talking about my father. They've been married for 55, 60 years, somewhere in there, 55 I think. I'm not really sure at this point. But that's the way I feel about the Holy Spirit, my Father, is that He's my other half. There's just not much left to this world that I want except for what it is I have. And that is this relationship with God. And I enjoy it by coming out into the wilderness and just taking my walks and doing my things, and then try to be a servant when He tells me to serve people wherever and however. But friend, I don't know how to explain this to anybody. That's the truth of it. I come out here and I talk to a voice in my head that I call the Holy Spirit, that Jesus told me I could have. Because, well, I became willing to die in order to live. He gave it to me. Yet, what does that give me? Everything and nothing, friend. I'm always looking like I'm at the end of my rope, except for my rope keeps on going. And that's just the way that seems to work out. And I just trust that my Father's going to do whatever He's going to do with me. To be quite honest with you, I'm waiting at the moment. That's what He showed me. I get on here and I talk on this camera and all that, and talk about the Holy Spirit and Jesus. Nobody ever buys into a word I say, friend. I don't think so. And if you do, you're one of the few. Because I'll tell you what, every time I talk about it in person, well, people think I'm not well. Because I don't believe what the church believes, friend. So I can't go unite with the church because, well, the church isn't teaching what Jesus said. They're teaching the canon. And if, as you know, I believe canons were meant to blow things up. Jesus said, my body is real flesh. My blood is real drink. And if you must eat my flesh and drink my blood. That's what Jesus said. So I've eaten His flesh, which is His word, and drank His spirit, which is His blood. And I end up with something different than what that church has. So I really don't have anybody to go commune with, because nobody has my truth but me. I'm sure someone else does out there, friend. But the Father seems to make this relationship about me and Him and not really about anybody else, which is pretty good, actually. Because I'll tell you, I'm so used to talking to God in the wilderness by myself. You know, when people pray and they do those prayers that are like, I don't know, there's just, my relationship with God is a very personal one. When I talk, I expect an answer, and So, how do I explain that to anybody? That when I talk to my Father, I expect to get a reply. Jesus told us that could happen, though. And he showed us how. But he said we were going to have to give up the world, friend. That's the price of truth. Because religion is built, a religion based on how to make you be able to be in the world and of it and still seek this Jesus. But that isn't what Jesus was talking about. Jesus said you had to be in the world but not of it. So that means you have to let go of the truth of the world and accept the truth of Christ. And if you've really read his, well, then this world has got to cause you about as much pain as it was causing me, friend. But I'm not without sin, so don't look at me for perfection. What I know is that my Father just gives me everything I need, even though I need nothing at all. Because the only thing I really need to do is serve his will, because his will is the only will I want. My will is selfishness, and I still do selfish things, whatever I have to, or whatever he calls me to. And it's not that he calls me to selfish things, but I can't give him anything that he won't take from me. And because I want his will, not mine, I don't even know what his will is. Except I know it all along. And because both are true, neither are. I know his will at the moment I know it, not a moment before. And sometimes it's one thing, and sometimes it's the other. And if I'm ever not sure, I can evaluate, make the best decision, and go with it. Because I try to live my life based on Jesus for the most part. Because that's how you know the Holy Spirit. See, if you want to know the Holy Spirit, you get to know the firstborn. And because you get to know the firstborn, which is Jesus, which is also called the only begotten Son. So when you get to know him, then you have the keys to the kingdom. But the church kind of taught you that you just say you believe in Jesus and accept him into your heart and believe he died on the cross for you, and then you get a free kingdom in your death. But that isn't what Jesus said. Jesus said that at the end of the age, his disciples would owe twice the debt. Go read, friend. Now here's my dilemma. If the people that were supposed to believe in Jesus are going to receive the kingdom, mean go to heaven, and the people that aren't his disciples, which means don't believe in Jesus, are going to go to hell, how is it that his disciples are going to owe twice the debt? It's a great question, isn't it? Because Jesus also said in another spot that he was going to deny those that cast out demons and prophesied in his name. Friend, do you know anybody that's doing that stuff in his name that doesn't believe Jesus died on the cross for their sins? I don't. Why did he say he was going to deny him, friend? That's what you need to understand. He said, I was naked. You did not clothe me. I was hungry. You didn't feed me. I was in prison, and you didn't visit me. These are the words of the Christ, friend. So understand that when I come on here, I talk about Jesus, not about hell, because what I know about hell is that different than what the church is preaching it. Because there's all kinds of questions to come up with, friend, and I'm not here to take away your faith. I'm here to help you find one if you believe in that Jesus and don't actually believe in Jesus. Because you only need faith when you need to stand on it. And people go to church every week and they never really stand on their faith because they don't need to, because they never really listen to what Jesus said, and therefore they just assume that everybody's teaching them the truth, and therefore they believe a lie. So let me ask you, friend. When the Pharisees came to John the Baptist and asked him if he was Elijah, he said no. Jesus said that Elijah was John the Baptist. And the church says there's no reincarnation. Which of those three were telling the truth? These are the questions, friend. Get to know Jesus. Read his words. If his words were his flesh, then eat his flesh and drink his spirit, which is his blood. Jesus said at the end of the age that the majority of his disciples would be here. Friend, do you know any 2,000-year-old men on the planet? I don't. So I'm not here to try to take your faith away. I'm here to get you to look at what Jesus said so that you can find a greater faith. Because Jesus told you the end of the age would come, and he was going to say, I don't know you. Because you didn't get to know him. Instead, you bought into what other people were saying about what he said. Friend, I don't want you to believe a word I say. That's how you can know that I'm not lying. Because I'm not here to tell you that I'm telling the truth. I'm here to ask you questions to go get your own truth. The Holy Spirit gave me the truth I need. The truth I have is the one I have. Might not be the one you need. My Father wants to give you something so that you'll have the power to overcome fear and selfishness, which is the thought of Satan, and develop a relationship with him that will bring you great joy. And while it's bringing you great joy, it'll bring other people great joy too. Except when it doesn't. Sometimes the things I do bring people great joy, but because I talk about this Jesus and I believe in what Jesus said, well, let's just say that a lot of believers don't believe what I say is true. And so therefore, it's just like Jesus said. Jesus said that if you come to really know me and to really love me, you'll really come to know and love my Father. And because you come to know us, then the world will hate you for it. And that kind of comes true. Unless it doesn't. Depends on the purpose my Father has for you. But when you want the whole truth, you'll get the whole truth. And here it is. I'll give it to you laid out on a platter, friend. The purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience. Did you ever wonder about that? Ask yourself. Think about someone that you know for sure loves you, and then ask yourself how you know that. What have they done to give you the experience of knowing they love you? Most of us will say, because they sacrificed something for me. Parents sacrifice a lot for their children, right? I know a lot of mothers that have worked 2 jobs and worked themselves to death to give them their children an education. Friend, that's a sacrifice. They give up all the world of joy to bring joy to their kids in hopes that they'll find something. However, the world really isn't going to have anything that you want if you get to know this Jesus. Even though it does, but you'll find that what you're looking for, if you're looking for the words of the Christ, are going to lead you to something far greater. Because if your heart becomes flesh, like Jesus said, this world's going to cause you pain. My Father has allowed me to have a heart of flesh because I try to help those that need help when he calls me to. And so even though I'm watching the world do what it does to one another, I'm no longer attached to that because I understand why my Father created it. And that's what I told you about the experience of the world is for love. Because, friend, have you ever thought about the Garden of Eden? I mean, people say, oh yeah, I want to be in the Garden of Eden. Friend, if you really thought about it, would you go in your mind to think about what Adam and Eve would have had in the garden? You know what they would have had? Nothing. You'd eat that fruit just like they did, just like we do every day. The fruit is called selfishness, and it causes suffering. But in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve couldn't have given anything to each other because, well, they didn't need anything because there wasn't anything to need. So understand that when one person has less and another person has more, then you have more to give to those that have less. And so therefore, the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience. So when we give more to others that have less, then they have more for it. So it's important that each of us have more and less of something. That way we can have this experience called love. But just don't give it to the folks that know you, friend, because Jesus told you that giving, loving those that love you, that's easy. Even the sinners and tax collectors do that. He said you have to give your love to everybody. He said you have to love those that hate you. There was a purpose in all of this stuff that he said. Because if you do the things he asks, your love will become greater, and the greater yours becomes, the greater my Father's will become to you. And I say that a lot on these videos. Because I'm just here to talk about him and why it is we're here. Because even though I say all these things are true, revelation is also true. So I'm not saying that hell's for eternity, but I'm telling you it's coming. It's coming because my Father has to make a choice. And the choice he makes is the one you make for him. And because you make it for him, you make it for yourself. And that is, the world was growing in love. My Father's farming love, the experience of love. But when a crop becomes ready, well, then it's time for harvest. Just like a farmer doesn't leave his field in the field past when it's ripe, or else it goes bad, right? Same thing with a gardener. So that's what happens is the world comes to a certain place where love's peaked out as much as it's going to get. It did back in Noah's day too, friend. It's the reason Noah built the ark, and my Father restarted that which he had originally started. So understand that this truth is true, and so therefore understand that when love peaks, my Father farms. And when it's time to harvest, then he'll harvest his love, and that'll be the end of this world. And if you haven't noticed, friend, this nation that declared itself one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, selfishness reigns, and love is peaking. And so I'm not here to tell you to be afraid. I'm here to tell you that this is a great time to come to know love by experience. This is a great time to choose to love your neighbor as yourself. This is a great time to go and get to know that Jesus and read what he said and come to understand what he meant. Because if you do that, you'll find the kingdom. And when you find the kingdom, because you have it, it'll be yours to keep. But the only way to keep it is to give it away. And that's what the church didn't tell you. The Pharisees were given 10% of their cumin and spice, friend. Jesus called them sons of Satan. Why? He wasn't judging the Pharisees, he was judging the thought system of the Pharisees. They were abiding in the law, not rising in the spirit of it. They loved those who loved them, but they didn't love those that didn't. So Jesus gave you all of this stuff, and he explained it all in a hidden way through parables and riddles. And if you want this truth, don't believe anyone else. Don't believe me. Go find it for yourself. Go do the things he asked. In the beginning, you won't find what you're looking for, to be quite honest with you, if you're like me. And you'll knock on the door, and the father will yell down there, you won't hear him. Go away, the hour's late. I'm in bed with my children. But I'll tell you what, Jesus told you don't knock lightly and don't give up. Make him get out of bed for sheer audacity. That means you have to do the things that Jesus said even when you're not understanding it. It means that you have to give your gifts in secret even though it doesn't seem to make any sense at first. There's a reason for that, friend. Jesus wasn't just a death, friend. He was a life. He breathed life into you, just like my Father breathed it into him. But those that do not choose to understand the truth of love cannot have what they will not seek. So understand that getting a camel through the eye of a needle is what he said when he was talking about getting a rich man into the kingdom. And I'm here to tell you that he wasn't lying. And if you haven't figured it out, friend, I don't care if you're going to church or not, if you're one of those people that got one of those $50 million yachts, friend, I don't know what to tell you. Go read Jesus. We all need to come to know love by experience, and we're supposed to enjoy the world, but you're supposed to enjoy it through the Holy Spirit and know what it is you need by asking God for what that is. So I don't care, you could have everything. And if you know the Holy Spirit and you're doing what he asks, then you're doing it right, even if you're doing it wrong, friend, just like me. So what I say, there is no judgment. I can't judge you because if I judge you, I will be judged. Jesus said that. However, because I became willing to die in order to live, I have to be willing to speak the truth without judgment. And that's what Jesus did. At one point, Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and it said, I won't judge you, but if I did judge you, I would judge you rightly because I judge for my Father. So understand, I'm here speaking about what Jesus said, and I don't expect you to believe me. I expect that if you said you know Jesus, that you're going to now go buy a Bible with what Jesus said and read. It's called the Red Letter Edition. And start reading what Jesus said and stop listening to what other people tell you about what Jesus said. Because it's by getting to know him is how you get to know the Holy Spirit. Because you cannot drink his blood, which is the Holy Spirit, unless you've eaten his flesh, and because you know one, you will know the other. That's the way that works. And I don't expect you to believe me, friend, because that's not what they teach at church. Some of them they do, I imagine, but not many of the ones I attended. There's a reason I found this in the wilderness and became willing to die in order to live, because I was seeking everywhere and couldn't find the truth. And now I have a greater truth, but the truth I have won't do you any good because what I know doesn't make sense. It's like a treasure that I've buried in the field. And I've basically given up everything in order to get that treasure. And it's the greatest thing ever. And there's nothing else I want more than the treasure I have, and that is this relationship I have with God through the Holy Spirit, which is the voice of God. But he'll sound one way to me and sound another way to you. God's going to talk to you the way you need talked to. He's going to let you understand what you need to understand. The more you want, the more you'll need. The more you need, the more he'll give. But if you don't want the kingdom, then he won't give it. Everybody needs the kingdom. They just don't know it yet. All right, friend. Well, I'm going to hop off of here. I just hope you're having a wonderful day and that you get to know this Jesus and find the love that he was talking about, because I'm telling you it's there. And when you find it, you'll see it in everybody. Every person on this planet is my Father's child, and every one of them is worth loving, period. There's just no greater truth than that. But you have to get to know Jesus to understand that. Believing that Jesus died on the cross and then not eating his flesh left you hungry. That's what it did me, friend. When I was trying to buy into what they were saying, you know what happened to me? I was like that one he talked about, that every time I'd sweep my house clean, that those spirits, you know, the spirit of drunkenness, the spirit of getting high, the spirit of sex, the spirit of lust, whatever you want to call it, those spirits, I would sweep my house clean and they would go out into dry, arid places. But because I left my house empty, meaning I didn't change my thoughts, I didn't give my thoughts to God, instead I kept them for myself and thought I was going to be in the world end of it. Well, because my house sat empty, they came back, friend, and they bought friends. And the condition of the man was worse than the first. Isn't that what it says? So over and over again, friend, I've been sweeping the house out and then I quit sweeping. I've just give up not sweeping. But see, I can't sweep. It's my Father that does all the sweeping. So if I keep looking for his thoughts instead of mine, then I end up with his instead of mine. And then I end up with all this joy, love, and peace, even though I have nothing at all. All right, friend, well, just know I love you because my Father loves you. And I want you to find what it is you're looking for, and I'm hoping you're looking for the love of Christ if you're listening to this. Because if you go read his message and do the things he asked, you'll find what you're looking for. But don't knock lightly. Make my Father get out of bed out of sheer audacity, just like Jesus told you to. All right, friend. May God bless you and yours.